Cindy read in the Amarillo paper where Amarillo Dusters were starting a team and they were looking for a coach. And she said, why don't you just apply for that? You're miserable farming. And
yeah.
I wasn't, but
yeah.
She said she knew my passion was coaching. So
Yeah.
I threw my name in the hat and got the Amarillo Dusters. And then next thing you know, we were going to WT and I'm back in coaching.
Step into the Fieldhouse, your front row seat to legendary victories and untold stories. Hey, I'm your host, Lance Lunner, breaking down sports from the inside out, along with co-host Jimmy Lackey. It's more than just a game. It's the Fieldhouse Podcast. Hey, welcome into the Fieldhouse Podcast. We got our co-host here, Jimmy Lackey, and I'm Lance Lunner, and this is a presentation of the Kids Inc. Sports Network. Hey, we thank you so much for joining us as always. Jimmy, it's number 43. We've got an incredibly special guest today, but we have a tradition here, Don, and we'll formally introduce Don Carthel here in a second. But when we reach our 43, and you've had a lot of players, Don, over the years, and maybe you had somebody that you liked when you were growing up who wore number 43. But do you have, or maybe another sport, do you have a favorite 43, that number that ever played for you?
That's a tough question.
Yeah, no.
I don't think I have. 42 rings a bell, but not 43.
43, okay. Do you have a 40?
Well, I told you 2 weeks ago when 41 hit, you know, Charlie Waters was my 41. Well, Cliff Harris has to be my 43.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, no doubt about it. They were quite the pair back in the day.
Oh, yeah, they were the safeties of all safeties.
I didn't even look in the book. So,
Coach,
my dad gave me this book. It's called Best by Number, and it tells people that wore those numbers. And I haven't even looked today to see who 43
Well, obviously
was.
the most famous 43 is going to be a NASCAR driver, I would guess, in that magazine. But
You
for
nailed
me,
it. You got it. Richard Petty.
Richard Petty,
how
of
about
course.
that?
But yeah, they're so known with them. You know, I grew up as a big Broncos fan, and they were so bad, Don, like when I was growing up there. And then they had that magical year. Steve Foley was one of their safeties.
Remember him?
Yeah, remember him. Yeah, he wore 43, very popular
listed.
Bronco. Is he listed?
He's listed as
Okay, yeah, that's my guy. So that's my 43. But yeah, did you call them by their names? Some coaches, always said, "Hey, 43. Hey, 12. How you doing today?" Whatever that. When you were coaching, was that your routine or was it names?
It was names. I knew them all and still know most of them. I've got a good memory. I go to church and I can't remember the people that sit by me. And I've been going to church with them for 20 years. It's embarrassing, but football players, I can remember those numbers and names.
Remember when you put the athletic tape and you had your name and taped on there to start out the season?
Yeah.
Maybe not so much in small town Texas, but did you use that method
we
as
did.
well?
Yeah, all the years that I coached. I wouldn't put it on the front because after 2 days it'd be rubbed off. I put it on their back of their helmet.
That's smart.
And it
did
worked
rub
pretty
off.
good. Yes.
Yeah. Do you remember those days?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Everybody had something to label their helmet just so you knew whose helmet was whose.
Yeah. And where I grew up, they always had the coach with the best handwriting because one year they had a coach. It was brutal. You couldn't even read the guys' names.
Right.
So it was that way. So, hey, let's introduce him. He's a great friend of ours, Don Carthel. Everybody in the Texas Panhandle knows him. The resume's incredible. Of course, he's in the Panhandle Sports Hall of Fame, and just recently went into the will be inducted in the 2025 class of the WT Hall of Honor. When you heard that news, Don, of you've won National Coach of the Year, Lone Star Conference titles. I mean, there's been so many awards coming your way. But when you heard this one, tell me what your emotions were like.
Well, they were. It was a very special day when Doug Lipinski mentioned it to me the other day. I really very appreciative, very humbled, honored to go in with the Joe Kerbels and the Dwayne Thomases and the Pistol Pete Pedros and just Sarah Butler. I mean, there with some really good people now, so it's going to be a special honor.
Yeah. Jimmy, your reaction?
Well, everybody around here. I mean, let's just be honest. Everybody around here knows it's long overdue.
Oh, yeah. That actually was a statement in the release, believe it or not. I don't know if you saw the official release, Don, but the headline was long overdue. You know what I mean? So so they knew. They knew, even WT releasing that.
Donnie and I have known each other for a while. My best friend, who Mark Gillespie, Coached with Coach Carthel over at Eastern in the late 80s, and I was running the alumni office at WT. And so that's when I met Coach, and we forged a friendship that's lasted dang near 40 years. Right. Both of y'all serve on our board of directors here, and so we go way back. But here's the thing that I'll tell the public about Don Carthel that I bet if I were to ask a bunch of his players, they would agree with me. If you watched him coach, and you watched closely, he talks about how he can remember all of his players. That's fact. But you always hear about that coach that's like a fatherly figure. I'm going to take it a step farther with Donnie, and he was more like a grandfather figure. The father was the disciplinarian, and the father had to play that role. He had that knack of going beyond that and having that affinity with those kids. It was a little different than a father figure. And I watched that up close and personal, I don't know how many years in a row. And there's a difference between being a father and a grandfather. And that grandfather relationship was evident with those kids. He had other coaches that could handle the discipline side of things, and he could go pick them up.
Yeah.
When they were down, he would be the one to go pick them up, put them back on. He's one of the most positive people I know. Those are the things and the qualities about this guy that I admire the most. But, the sun's always up with Coach Carthel. It's never down. The glass is way more than half full with Coach Carthel. In issues that I've had to deal with, it's always, think of the positive, think of this. And when you're doing that with somebody like me, think about what he's doing that when it's a player that's a little dejected, not having the best day, and he goes over and picks that kid up. There's your proof in the pudding of what kind of coach you're dealing with.
Yeah, his teams were amazing. I gained mad respect for what Don did over at Eastern New Mexico because I was actually covering the Bill Kelly Buffs at that time, and they had that thing going for a little bit there, and you guys kind of took over the reign. But real quick, Gillespie, man, just brought up a memory. How was he as an assistant coach, man?
He was great. He really was. He was a ball of fire on the field. He was a great motivator and a great teacher and just an excellent coach. I enjoyed working with Mark.
Yeah. I got to tell you a Mark story, though. So I didn't even know him, and I'm announcing who was the track coach would be in the early 80s at WT? Willis, great guy. When I was working in the SID office, I had just been fired from the Canyon News. So Cal Kufal let me work in the office. So I'm announcing Willis brought in these great decathletes, Don, like world-class decathletes from London and all this.
Right.
And, we have this big event at WT, and I'm announcing it. Gillespie runs up and he goes, "You've got the greatest track voice I've ever heard here at WT." He's going off, and I'm like, who is this
Do you remember
guy?
his nickname he had for you?
No.
He called you the Force.
The Force.
He called you the Force.
Yeah. But I love Gillespie. Yeah. He made my day.
You can't not like Mark.
Maybe it'd just be nice because I was struggling, Don. I mean, it was out of my league, but I was like, then one of them goes on and wins an Olympic gold that we're just right there at WT. I'm like,
that's amazing.
How do you get these guys here?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. And I was just like amazed. So what I want to know, Don, coaching takes a special breed, but also you have to have that passion, it seems, early in life to jump into coaching. You had a lot of options. You're a hard worker, obviously still farming. I mean, most guys would have just said, I'm kicking up the, golfing and not doing anything. I admire that as well. But why coaching?
Well, when I was in the 7th grade, I think is the first time that I just made a decision. That's what I wanted to do. And, all those tests that the counselors run you through, what do you want to do? I want to coach. I want to coach. I want to coach. I didn't have any other desires to do anything
Was there
else.
a coach that inspired you? Or
my senior year, I was kind of headed that way anyway. My senior year, we had a coach named Ray DeBoard. He was our basketball
would have
coach
been where?
at Freona.
Yes.
And he went on to take the Chieftains to state. They had battles with Ken Cleveland at Dimmitt every year, but he was my offensive line coach and then my basketball coach also at Freona. And I would stay after practice till 6 or 7 every night. He and I just sit there and talk and have fun in the coach's locker room and everything. And then I don't know, he's still one of my best friends. He was always on my resume. He's retired now in Fort Worth, but just a fine man, good Christian man. He made a great impression with me.
Yeah.
Talking about resumes, I told Don to get my name off his resume one time because he tried twice to get the WT job when I was working there, and it wasn't working. I said, get me off, maybe he'll get the job. Finally, we got it done.
Yeah. Speaking of that, your time at Eastern New Mexico, you made a big-time name for yourself, taking that program. Bill Kelly, like you said, had come to WT. They had some success there, but not the success you had. What was it like in Portales? That some, and no disrespect to Eastern or Portales, but recruiting there probably is a lot harder when you have a Commerce, you have a WT, facilities area-wise. So what was that like? Was that a challenge?
It was a big challenge. And, I'd come from University of Dubuque in Iowa, and we played against Upper Iowa, and that was in Fayette, Iowa. And we always said, I won't say what we said, but that was that had to be a hard place to recruit to, Fayette, Iowa.
Yeah.
And then I come down here, and there's Goodwill, Oklahoma. There's Portales, New Mexico. There's Canyon in West Texas. There's Texas Tech. All of these schools are hard to recruit to, because you got to recruit kids from 300 and 400 or 500 miles if you want to compete. And usually you're driving those guys through all these other campuses to get to your place. So it takes a special person to get those kids to come to these towns and stay. And you got to treat them right. And we always did. And at Eastern, I would fly kids into Lubbock, and I'd take them to the 50-yard line restaurant where one of our alums, Don Stravlo, who I played with, he was a quarterback, he was the owner. He comped us with steaks, kids, their families and everything all those years. And then I'd get them in the van, and it'd be dark, and I'd drive about 100 miles an hour to get them to Portales so they wouldn't realize how far out of Lubbock it was. But we got them, and then we treated them right. And a lot of people have always asked me, what's your key to success? And I really think the way you treat them, as long as you treat them like your own kids, and you love on them, and you care about them and their parents and their girlfriends and their academics, they're going to play really hard for you. And I think that's the difference.
Yeah, and you won the conference title there. That had to be kind of a special feeling.
It was.
I know they're all special, but you really took that program that whole way.
Well, that's your alma mater, too.
It was.
Yeah,
and Cindy's,
sure.
That's where I met her. So it was
special.
We were
place.
close to home, too. It was perfect for us.
Yeah. Freno's not that far down the road at all. So, tell Jimmy, you can jump in any time, but I've always been curious about this, Don. So you jump out of coaching for a while. What was the decision there? Was it more family than anything, or did you just want a break?
I was having a ball coaching, and we just won the conference, and I applied at Texas State and at Sam Houston and at Stephen F. Austin. They were all open. And I couldn't even get an interview at any of them after doing what we did at Eastern. So I just decided.
Surprise you?
Yeah, it did.
Yeah.
Kind of made me mad.
Yeah.
So Kobe was just a sophomore, and Courtney was coming as a freshman. And I just made the decision to get out of coaching, go farm with my dad. He gave me that opportunity, and watch my kids. And so that was the main reason for retiring when I was 39 years old.
Wow. Okay. That's I did not know that story.
Yep.
And then obviously the bug hit you again, and you a unique path to get back in, but you decide to do some indoor football.
Right.
That became the craze of Amarillo for a little while. It was insane.
Fun.
Yeah.
It was fun. Well, I have to give my wife Cindy credit for that little change in profession. I was content with farming. I was helping a lot of colleges recruit local talent. I'd scout all the Panhandle kids and send names to different schools, but I was volunteering with Abilene Christian. Kobe got into coaching after he finished playing at Angelo State, so I was doing a volunteer deal there, kind of like I'm doing now with Stephen F. Austin. And I was also head coach of the Division II All-Star team. We were playing in Fargo, North Dakota. It was a Division II, and it's called the Snow Bowl.
Nice.
And I was actually in Fargo, North Dakota, and Cindy read an Amarillo paper where the Amarillo Dusters were starting a team, and they were looking for a coach. And she said, why don't you just apply for that? You're miserable farming. And
Yeah.
I wasn't, but
Yeah.
she said she knew my passion was coaching. So
Yeah.
I threw my name in a hat and got the Emerald Dusters. And then next thing you know, we're going to WT, and I'm back in coaching.
Do you think if you wouldn't have done the Dusters, you would have not got the WT job?
I doubt very seriously that they would have hired me, but never know.
Yeah, no, you
They
don't.
turned me down twice before, so
Maybe because he's on the resume.
Yeah, maybe so. I can remember when Donnie got the deal at the Dusters, I called Cindy, and I said, we need him on our board. She goes, he needs to be involved. And that's when Donnie came on our board, about 2003, and been on ever since. And so I'm going to take you back to a time in the early 80s. So me and my buddies, we go down and talk about Mark Gillespie. Mark started out at Stephen F. Austin, ironically. Went there for a semester and then came back to WT, and we ran together at WT. Well, Mark met some guys down there, and two in particular, Doak and Greg Kaysen. And Greg transferred and went to play for Austin College in Sherman, Texas. And so they're going to play, of all teams, Lubbock Christian University in Lubbock on this piece of property out back that didn't even look like a football field. So we go down to watch Greg play. Lo and behold, guess who the head football coach at Lubbock Christian University was? And I believe it was just for 1 year they had football. Is that correct?
They had it 4 years.
4 years.
Yeah, and I had it 2 years.
So guess who the two coaches on that field were that day? Now, Greg's bunch won a national championship that year, and what is that, NAI?
NAI. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So Austin College won a national championship that year. Don Carthel for Lubbock Christian University, and Mel Churchman was on the opposite sideline. Mel and Donnie met when we played Northwest Missouri.
Wow.
And he put that program together at Northwest Missouri, and Donnie puts a powerhouse program at WT together. And I go to Maryville, Missouri to watch those two guys play again against
That's
each
awesome.
other. What a small world.
Yeah.
Sometimes not the most glorious jobs. Like when I was a sports writer, I just really enjoyed just going to games, writing stories, but more else finding stories and writing features, things like that. Not being a sports editor, you know that's not why you got into that. But some of those young times, Don, are they always special? Like the Lubbock Christian days.
They are.
Even though you're maybe known for WT and bigger times, but yeah.
No, I still get together with my Lubbock Christian boys, and my Dubuque, Iowa, we get together probably every 2 or 3 years. And
Wow.
I mean, just have reunions, and we're having another one with Eastern this year. And some of my best friends are guys that I coached back in the day at Lubbock and Dubuque, way back in the day.
Yeah, that must have been.
And Floydada. Gosh, I'm still good friends with several of those Floydada boys that I
Was that in the mid-'70s?
75, 76.
Was that your first actual coaching job?
Yeah, I finished up at Eastern as a GA and coached O-line 1 year.
Yeah.
And then I went full-time at Floydada.
Wow.
Cindy was the first Plainview girls volleyball coach. They were just starting volleyball there. So she was at the time the winningest coach, even though she only won a couple of games whenever she was starting that program.
Awesome,
but we were having fun down there in Floyd County, and it was a lot of fun.
And little did you know, one of the best volleyball players ever would become your daughter.
That's right.
Yeah, I mean, my gosh. All right, what do you got?
Well, I'm going to ask him this because this is still vivid. I'm going to see if he answers it the way I would. Hardest hit on a football field you ever saw?
Oh, you ever saw?
That he ever saw?
I think it was Eldon Grimslett
That's
at
exactly
Northwest
what I wrote
Missouri
down.
on a punt return, and they faked it, and he met the guy right on our sideline, and it sounded like a cannon went off. The kid was, I think he was wearing number 2 or number 4.
4.
And he was from Texas. He was a Texas kid playing up there.
I thought he was dead.
We did too. Kobe and I were right there on the, I mean, it happened on the sideline, and we're looking at him, and his eyes are rolled back in his head. He was completely unconscious, and we were trying to get trainers over there, and he came to, and he came back in and played.
I was fixing to say he came back and scored a touchdown. He wouldn't get to play today, but
So yeah, even as many hits as you've seen.
That one stands out.
Wow.
I mean, they were both going full speed, and Eldon Grimslett was a man.
it was ugly.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy on the biggest hits? You'll get a kick out of this, Don. I had the honor of interviewing Zach Thomas for The Bridge, and Miami, Tech, all these. I go, hardest you ever hit somebody, and he goes, Hereford, Texas, quarterback.
Yeah.
And he names the quarterback, or he didn't know the guy's name. 4 of his buddies were out listening that night, and they came up afterward and talked to Zach about it. But here's what happened: he knocks the guy, Zach being Zach, he knocked the guy out.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the backup comes in and throws a touchdown pass immediately over their head. So he goes, I should have just left him in the game. You know what I mean? But his friends came up. But it's crazy how as many hits as you've heard, that
That's
one
it.
stands out. Yeah,
It does.
Before we get to you and a little more, but Colby is an amazing man, amazing coach. When your son follows in your footsteps and has accomplished what he did, national championship at Commerce, doing a great job at Stephen F., what has that meant to your life? And it's continued your coaching career as well.
It's just a joy to watch him, do the things that he's done. He is a natural at it. He's a born leader and a good Christian man, and treats kids right. And it's just fun to watch him develop that and see the guys playing hard for him.
Yeah.
And listening to them and their stories and the things that he does to influence their lives.
You won a lot of games, but I got to ask you, that Commerce championship game, where does that rank in your experiences in all your coaching days?
Oh, it's probably number one, because those things are so hard to come by. Just, watching the University of Florida basketball team, it takes you back to the one and only time that we've won a national championship, and that is a mark that they can't take away from. It's really special.
You saw the pain in Kelvin Sampson's eyes.
Yes.
He knows.
Yep.
69 years old, that close.
Right.
And it slipped, slipped away.
Bill Bandy and I went to that game in Kansas City in a soccer arena, of all places. But it was so fun to watch, to get to do that, and to go down on the field afterwards, get a picture with Coach, get a picture with Colby, and those are special times for their family. To watch their family get to enjoy that was really, really cool.
Don also led WT to the national semis in 2012. What a run at WT, 2005 to 2012. Officially 79-22, but that program, you reversed everything. And I want you to talk about it, but I also want to talk about October 3rd, 2007. 23,276 fans officially. More than that, really, if you want to get down to it. It is at least 25,000. Showed up at Kimbrough Memorial Stadium to watch Eastern and WT play. WT wins the game 62-31. One of the most historic days of football in the Texas Panhandle. When that crowd's coming in, Don, what are you thinking? Because you guys, your coaching staff, you and your athletes brought that crowd.
Well, it was exciting, just the lead up to it, and 2 years before, when we had set the first record at 22,000,
right,
and to come back 2 years later and break it again was all pretty special. But every night at Kimbrough to me was special. My goodness, I didn't care if it was 5,000 or 10,000 or 15,000 or that 23,000. I think still is the Division II all-time record for a home game. That's not on a neutral site. So, pretty special.
What was it about? You marketed your team as well. You were proud of your players. How did you get fans to come in? And do you think why'd they want to follow the Buffs?
I think number one, because we were winning. Number two, we had a really exciting offense to watch, because we were going to put 40, 50, 60 points on pretty
70,
much every time.
Yeah.
And we played a great brand of defense, and we were always doing something crazy in the special teams, and it was just a fun environment to coach in and to watch as a spectator.
One thing Don doesn't get credit for, Jimmy, in my opinion, your ability to see project an athlete, how he fits into my team, how he fits into my program, but you get skill guys. And one of your assistants told me once, you were never afraid not to ask somebody, hey, come take a look at us. Mm-hmm. I don't care where they had been, at the top, Texas University, UT, whatever, or out of high school. You were never afraid to ask somebody, where did that come from, Don? And is that true?
Well, I suppose it is. We'd go to Umbarger and recruit if we could, but
okay.
They didn't have a school. But that was one of the jokes that we always played on one of our young coaches was he'd come back with his list of players that he had found, and I said, well, what'd you think of the big kid at Umbarger? He said, oh, Coach, I didn't go there. And I said, well, you better get over there and find out about so-and-so from Umbarger. And I still got coaches from every year, the young coach we would play that trick on. But no, we would turn over every rock that we could to find them, and, looking for character, looking for potential. But, if it's a good quarterback, usually those guys are the best athletes on that high school campus. And we would usually predict where could he play if he can't play quarterback for us. And we would find some really good athletes at defensive end, safety, receiver, linebacker.
Interesting.
That played quarterback.
We went to, I guess it would have been Grand Junction, first game of the year. And Bill Bandy, Craig, and I flew to Denver. Gerald Welch picked us up in Denver, and we drove 4 hours over to Grand Junction to go
Might as well drove from
to
here.
get to the Mesa game. And so, we were going to spend the night with Gerald the night before. And so, Roger Roundtree calls me from Buck Sporting Goods.
Mm-hmm.
He said, man, I need a favor. I said, what's that? He goes, we've got a jersey that just got here, and it's for Jamarcus Webb, and we've got to get it to Grand Junction. You're going, aren't you? And I go, yeah. I said, okay. I said, well, I'll come get it, and we'll get it. So I take this jersey, and I couldn't help myself. I had to put it on. I don't know how those guys put those jerseys on, because I could barely fit it over me, and Jamarcus was massive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's got to put that over pads.
Yes.
How in the world did those guys get those jerseys on like that?
The same way the women wore girdles all those years.
Golly.
Yep.
You
It
just
was
squeeze into
tiny.
it. Yes.
I mean, how big was he? 6'6", probably?
He was 6'7",
6'7",
and probably about 280.
Went to the
290.
Bears, and my gosh,
Had
he
a
was
good
a
NFL
massive
career.
boy.
He sure did.
But yeah, I'll never forget bringing that jersey to get it to the ball game. Man, you talk about feeling like you got precious cargo. That was a trip to get that there.
Don, preparing athletes for the rest of their lives. I know that's big on your agenda as well, not necessarily NFL, because so few make it.
Exactly.
You got to be blessed with that body. Mm-hmm. What? How did you do that so well? Because if you look at the graduates of your program, I mean, they're in all walks of life and many excelling.
Well, I think being a role model as a coach, not necessarily the head coach, but all of our coaches, I expected a lot of them to have the kids over to their house on Thursday nights and feed them and, watch film with them. But really get them out of the dorm, get them out of the cafeteria, and doing little things like that as a role model is something that's really necessary for a lot of those kids. 60 to 70% of the kids had never been raised by a dad or a granddad, mainly a mom or a grandmother or an aunt. And so to be around male figures, how do they act? Well, we better act this way if we're going to be a good role model. So I think that's really important. Having prayer and having devotions before every ball game, praying after every game, praying at halftime, praying before the games. Just all those little things, feed into the minds and the hearts of every one of those kids that you're coaching. So you're developing character, you're developing men for the future.
Do you miss anything about the day-to-day of being a head coach?
I do, but then when I think about the portal in the NIL, I say I'm glad I'm not involved in that, head chair anymore.
That was one of the questions Jimmy and I had. I don't think anybody could have predicted, Don, how much it actually changed everything. I think we all knew, okay, something's going to happen, but it's still the wild, wild west. The money out there, but also that portal. It's basically open 24/7, 365. There's not like a recruiting time, you know what I mean, a limited time. So I feel for these coaches, but do you have any, first of all, what's your thoughts on it?
Well, I think it's ruining the game until they put some parameters on it.
100% agree.
There's a lot of players that deserve to get some financial benefits from playing in college because there is a lot of money, not at this level, at Division II, but the big boys, there's a ton of money out there. So I can see where it's needing to get shared in some capacity there, but they need to put some parameters on it. And I never wanted to be an NFL coach. For some reason, I just didn't want to be with those prima donnas and all the money and all that stuff. But right now, the NFL is a better situation for a coach than the NCAA.
Because there's control?
It's control. They got contracts. You don't have to worry
Interesting.
about them leaving every month or two, and you can have a summer vacation. There's a lot of advantage now to the NFL that the NCAA coaches don't have.
Yeah, with the double eagle money down at Texas Tech and things like that, they've really joined that buying players and things like that. But, I mean, if you're in the middle of it, you got to do the best you can just to do that. Don't you agree to be successful?
You do. And that's, watching Colby, he's had to make some adjustments on the way that I always coached, the way he always coached until 2 years ago.
Wow.
And he's figured the portal out now, and he's going to try to take advantage of it, but it's changed the way he handles kids and recruits and everything else.
How hard is it on coaches to have to recruit usually you recruited somebody in, taught them the way, and they would stick around, playing time now. If they don't get it early, they're gone, fair or not. But, and I get it. I mean, a kid wants to play, but that's just got to be crazy to have to re-recruit your kids. Don't you think that's one of the biggest it is kind of a hassle. Hassle is the word for coaches these days. You do all that work to get them in there, and then the littlest thing you
got to do it again. And every one of your position coaches is so critical that they have a good relationship with that second stringer, the third stringer, the fourth stringer, the walk-ons, because head coach can't touch all of those every day, but those position coaches, it's critical to have a good morale there, because you can't form that loyalty and stuff like that if you're constantly having to recruit new kids in every semester.
Take yourself back to being a Division II coach, and then if you do develop one of those guys, all of a sudden, oh man, I've got Division I on my, and they're being recruited by those Division I schools as well. You lose your good players immediately, and you kind of did the groundwork.
Right.
I think Division II is suffering the most from the portal right now.
Yeah, they are, and they're having to deal with that just like the 1AAs are. There's a new rule going in for next year where all the Division 1A and 1AA, the FCS and FBS, can only have 105 guys.
Right. Yeah.
And that's going to open up 20 to 30 kids on every roster in the United States for the Division IIs to take advantage of, or the junior college, or somebody's going to reap the benefits of the new rule that's hurting, in my opinion, the Division I programs.
Yeah, and junior college going with where their eligibility remains.
Crazy.
Yeah. My thought is this, Don. What do you think of this? So you get out of high school, you have those 6 years. You have 6 years. Mm-hmm. Okay. Right. I don't care if you get hurt, redshirt year, whatever. Give them 6 years, everybody.
Right.
And leave it at that, and then we don't have to worry about, junior college is doing this. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't either. I will let the other boys figure that out.
Yeah. Well, but I mean, the bottom line is, Jimmy, in my opinion, college coaches have a lot more on the table now than they've ever had in any time in the world of college football.
No doubt. You're exactly right.
You've heard me say it before. I think if they would tie an academic piece to that too, they could shut some of that down.
Right.
If you don't have X number of credits, you're not going to just freely transfer somewhere else. They've got to – the university's spending the money on them to bring them to their campus. The university needs to reap a little bit back of that. And, I mean, look at it from a faculty member's perspective. They've got a job to do too. And that's a fine line a lot of times in athletics and faculty. I've watched it up close and personal. But the academic side of it, I think, could be the key in – somebody just showing up on a campus, not going to class, just playing basketball, playing football, playing whatever, and all of a sudden they just want to put in to go to the portal. Well, if they don't have any credits to transfer and you've spent money on them, there ought to be a penalty for that. That's my opinion about it, and I think that could put some teeth in the process.
Right. I like that. Don, I've always wondered, the champion teams, all those are fun, the states, the national semifinal teams, things like that. Was there a team that maybe didn't achieve the wins and losses that you might have wanted, but what a wonderful team to coach? Was there one of those teams you could tell us about?
Well, I could start with Lubbock Christian because we didn't win much there, but we had great kids and, without any scholarships and facilities or anything else like that, we brought in 150 kids my first year there. And
Wow.
that's what they wanted was enrollment. So we did our part there. That's for sure. Over 10% of the student body was football players.
Wow.
But probably the 1990 Eastern team
Okay.
was my best team, probably that I'd assembled at Eastern, and we came up a little short. And I was real disappointed then with that bunch. It just didn't materialize. And the next year, which was my last year at Eastern, we won the whole conference, and we weren't near as talented as we were the year before. But that was a special group because to win a LSC title outright,
Yeah.
when everybody was really strong back then, was a really special achievement for us.
Yeah.
Big kid that went to Seattle, Kennedy?
Michael Sinclair.
Michael Sinclair, thank you.
Yep. Helped. He coached our D-line at
Yep.
WT.
Yep.
Came back and volunteered after
Yep.
he retired from
Yep.
the NFL.
Yep.
And he was pretty special.
NFL players, are they just different? Do you know right away something special about the guys who eventually make it to that league?
Yeah, you're very seldom surprised when one makes it because you've predicted it. You've had him for 3 or 4 years, or some cases just 2 years if you got him from a junior college or a transfer. But they're a special breed, and they're usually a step above, the
Obviously,
other
they have
players on the team.
athletic skill. Do they usually have something else ticking inside?
Work ethic is really
It's huge,
critical. Yeah. You're not going to get there with just talent alone. You've got to outwork those people, too, once you get into camp
Donnie, you've
somewhere.
put a bunch of kids in the pros. Let's just be honest about it. And we used to hold the pro days right down here at our indoor arena. Do you have a number on kids that you've sent to the NFL?
I would say 20 to 25 maybe that have stuck in a camp somewhere and made a roster.
Yep.
And I bet we've got 6 or 8 coaches that are in NFL right now that have coached with us somewhere.
That was my next question. Is
Yeah.
how many coaches are out there that came from the Don Carthel lineage? I mean, there's lots. You had a Super Bowl winner this year. Talk about that.
Well, let me think who that was. That was give me
Bobby King,
Okay, at
Philadelphia.
Okay, Bobby King. He was our defensive line coach at WT my first 2 years there. Then he left, went to Baylor and somewhere else, and then I got him back for another stint at WT. And he's had a great career. He's bounced around a little bit, but ended up getting a Super Bowl, like you said. And then Wes Phillips was our quarterback coach that first year. That's Bum Phillips' grandson, Wade
Right.
Phillips' son.
Yeah.
And he was as smart of a coach as I've ever coached with on the sideline when he was just a GA here at WT. I was impressed with him. If I had questions, I went to him. I mean, he was really special, and he is now the offensive coordinator with the Vikings and had a great NFL career as well.
Yeah.
Those are 2 pretty good ones there.
Yeah, really good.
And then you talk about all your coaches that are in the college world now. I mean, just in the Lone Star Conference, I don't remember if we did this off air or on air, but talk about the coaches in the conference right now.
Yeah,
that-
in the Lone
that
Star
coach with
Conference, Josh Lynn is a really special friend of mine.
That's what I was going to have
And
you talk about.
I
Was Coach Lynn.
didn't get to coach Josh. He was in at Eastern after me, but I got a lot of respect for him and the programs that he's built. And coaching against him when we were at Commerce and he was at Eastern, he was really hard to beat.
Can he get this thing flipped, do you think? A little?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I really do.
Yeah.
We got facilities here at WT, and he knows what it takes, and he loves this area. He's a Eastern New Mexico guy, and this is home to him. So he's excited.
And you knew his
to be here.
family.
Yeah, his family. His mom was from Farwell, kind of a classmate of my wife. So we've known them for a long time.
Yeah. Hey, before you continue that, if you don't mind, and Jimmy he'll admit it, he was totally against it, but going from Kimbrough and now Happy State Bank Stadium, but to the new stadium, Schaefer Bain Schaefer, whatever you want to call it. I call them both, but and I was like, wow, why would you do that? But that facility, Don, that they built is amazing on campus. Take us in, take our viewers in and listeners. How critical is it having a facility like that to recruit to?
Well, I think it's very, very important. And, WT has got bragging rights now as one of the best stadiums in the nation. And I agree with it. I've only been there a couple of times, but it's got bells and whistles that Kimbrough didn't have. When I was here, Kimbrough was the stadium.
Yeah.
Kids came in there, and we'd take them out there on Saturday night to turn the lights on, and them and their parents, and they'd say, "Coach, where do I sign? Where do I sign?" They were ready to sign being in that big stadium, which is you don't see that in Division II very often. So in both situations, you sell what you have, and Josh will be able to sell Bain Schaefer Stadium now because it is a gorgeous stadium.
Yeah, they did a great job. There's not a bad seat in the place for
it's
fans.
really nice.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you another class act about this guy, and help me remember this. Was it Coach Witten's kid that had the illness at Tarleton?
No, it
Who
was Sam McElroy.
McElroy.
Yeah.
So we're going to play Tarleton at home. Coach calls and says, "Hey, we need to go get a bunch of Kentucky Fried Chicken buckets, and we're going to pass the hat during the first half, and at halftime, y'all go count this money, and we're going to give this to the family." She had a daughter, if I remember correct, had a pretty serious illness.
Yeah.
And we're going to raise some money for this family. So Craig, me, Sarah, her sister, her mom, everybody, we're all over the stands. Of course, we had great crowds back then.
Yes.
And we're passing these buckets, and there's people putting money in the buckets. So we go in the locker room after halftime. So we're missing the whole third quarter. And if you look at this studio, and I'm not lying, we had money piled this high. We're dumping these buckets out, and people are just bringing more and more and more and more. There's dollar bills everywhere. And I don't remember the exact number, but I know it was well over $20,000.
Wow.
That we raised at a ball game that was all his idea to do. And he had a nice video done on the video board telling what we were doing and before the game started, and then ran it again at halftime, and then we took all that money in after they left the locker room at halftime. I never seen so much cash in one place. But it was a really cool deal. But that's the kind of guy you're sitting next to, Lance, is football and the game and all the things that he did. But, man, the game of life, he's a winner at it. And
I got to ask you, though, Don, I mean, coaching, playing, all that stuff, it's just different. You know, the thrill of it, just simply walking over the hill into Kimbrough, you know, I mean, the goosebumps. Everybody always talks about those things, but
it's true.
Are you just thrilled that was your life? I mean,
am.
when you look back.
Yeah, I've been blessed. I got to do what I wanted to do. These crazy administrators, they don't know that I'd have done it for nothing. They didn't have to pay me, but I'm glad they did. But, no, it's just special, and there's nothing like it. You know, when I got through playing in college, I knew I wanted to coach. And after I started coaching a little bit, I started telling a lot of my players whenever they'd finished playing, I said, well, if you want to coach, that's the next best thing to playing. You get that adrenaline rush just like you did as a player. You get fired up. You get the same type of feelings that you did as an athlete. So there's something to that, I think.
Yeah.
The elephant in the room is when he left, and I will never forget the day Lance calls me. I'm on my way out the door. I had not heard anything. Lance calls me. He said, "Hey, what's going on?" I said, "I don't know, but let me call you back because Andy Justice is calling on the other line." Andy's asking me, I said, "Andy, I don't know. This is the first I'm hearing." And Andy goes, "Oh, come on, Jimmy, you know." And I said, "I really don't know what you're I don't know." And so I called Lance back. He says, "You want to go to a press conference with me at 7 o'clock down campus?" I said, I don't even want to go near it. And, things happen, and I have my opinions about it all, and maybe I should keep them to myself. Probably in hindsight, and I think most people that sit on my side of the fence would say that was one of our biggest mistakes. It was done for reasons unbeknownst, and Donnie and I probably know a little bit about the reasons, but I'll leave it at that, and I'm not going to put him on the spot with it. But I'm going to say a little bit about it, and just say that I wasn't running the alumni office at that time, thank goodness. I watched them change the name of the school and drop football once, and that was bad enough. But I would not have wanted to be the alumni director or any kind of sales job at WT the day they let Coach go, and I'll leave it at that. But, man, if you're going to go out at the top, he did.
Yeah, that was a sad day for WT, actually, or fans, I will say that, as I'm sure for everybody involved on. But the only thing, if I'm overstepping boundaries, I've always been curious, and you hear stuff, and you being the humble guy you are, did you offer, look, let me just finish this year, and then I'll step aside? I was just wondering if that was part of that conversation.
It was, but long story short, Michael McBroom and I are very good friends right now. We
Yes.
get along really good. Colby and Michael are working great together. Neil Weaver, the president. I mean, it's a win-win deal for SFA and for the McBrooms and for the Carthels. We're all on the same page and getting along really, really good right now.
I'm glad you brought that up.
Best phone call I had in a long time. Donnie called me, and it was when Michael got the job at Stephen F. and he was looking for your number because wanted you and Cale to be the ones to talk about it.
Which we appreciated greatly.
You know, he wanted y'all to talk about it. But to hear Coach tell me, you know, any hatchets that we had have been buried, and everybody's in a good place. We've had great talks with the McBroom families. Michael told me there's been tears shed. And I will go as far as to say this, and I'm going to leave it alone. The first day I met Dr. Wendler, he'd been on campus about 6 months, and the first time I met him. And his secretary called and asked me if I'd come have coffee with him. So I went up to his office. I was there 2 hours, and I just thought I was going to be there about 10 minutes. He asked me 2 questions. First 2 questions out of the back, wanted to know about my thoughts about Kimbrough. And I told him, I said, well, you know, it's historical. I see both sides. I get it from the construction side. Is it cheaper to do one or the other? You know, my daughter was at Oklahoma State at the time. I got to see what an on-campus stadium was like and game days and things like that. So I could see it from both sides. In hindsight, boy, am I glad we did what we did.
Oh, yeah.
Because I was one that went kicking and screaming from Kimbrough. But the second question he asked me was, where do you stand on the Carthel issue?
Is that right?
He did.
Wow.
And Dr. Wendler would tell you that. And I said, Chief, I don't know if you want to know that answer. So we talked about it at length, and I told him my opinions about it.
Was that an hour of those 2 hours?
Pretty much. And I'm going to tell you what he told me. And if he wants to come on and rebut it, let him, but he won't, because he'll tell you this is what he told me. He said, Jimmy, when it comes down to coaches, you know, that's Michael's job, except when it's the football coach. That's my call. And I'll leave it at that.
Okay. Oh, wow. But anyway, Don, congratulations, the Hall of Honor. You know, you've been in a lot. You've received a lot of awards. Do you think that's going to be an extra special evening, not only for you? I mean, you're a Freona kid, man. You know what I mean? WT's the college of the 806 of the Panhandle,
Right.
And you're going into their premier, what I consider their premier, athletic-wise, of course, but their premier class. You know what I mean? So, is it going to be? Have you thought ahead? Is it going to be like emotional for you? Is it going to be like a wow day?
I think it will be. I'm really looking forward to it, and probably as much as anything else, I'm looking forward to seeing a lot of my players come back, because I've got tons of phone calls and emails and texts from
That's cool.
all of our players that can. They're going to try to come back for that event, and so it's going to be a real special Friday night and Saturday afternoon for me.
Yeah, I think it's like everybody said, it's long overdue. And hey, I've enjoyed this conversation, Don. Did you ever miss, as the head? My last one for you, being the sports editor. Last thing I got to do is go out and cover what I love to do.
Mm-hmm.
Being a head coach, did you miss just being the O-line coach in Floydada, Texas, or coordinator or whatever? Did you ever miss that part when you were way up, just doing all of the whole? You know,
Yeah.
You know what I mean. You're meeting with administrators,
Right.
you're meeting with coaches, you're meeting with players. Yeah.
Yeah, now I think there's a lot to that. Being a head coach, you know, some coaches continue to coordinate, and I admire them for that. I didn't feel like I could do a great job at both, so that's why I hired great coaches. And so, yeah, I missed the game planning, the X's and O's part of it.
Yeah.
I really missed that a bunch. So
Relationship with the players, like just the day-to-day, hey, how was school today?
right, all that
how's the fam? Yeah.
plays into being a coach, depending on which level you're at. But no, I miss that but I wouldn't trade it for anything. I hired good coaches. I recruited great players, and they made me look good, and they made WT look good. So that's a win-win.
So here's what I'll do to finish it out. We are sitting at the table with the winningest football coach in the history of our university.
Yes.
That's number one. Number two, probably without question, the best friend raiser we ever had, in addition to fundraiser. And there's two different things there, but winning friends and influencing people, he was the best at. People likened Donnie to Spike Dykes at Tech. He was our Spike Dykes.
Yeah.
He could relate to people. He came from a farm in Freona, Texas, and people could relate to him. But at the end of the day, he's just one of the best guys. I mean, look at him. What you see today is the same guy that was on the sidelines coaching at WT all those years ago. And for me, he's been a wonderful board member, but even better, for almost 40 years, he's been one of my dear friends. And man, what a lucky opportunity I've had to have some tutelage from him over the years.
And I just want to say thank you. I know this is like minor in the whole world of things, but I always wondered, Don, what it would be like to walk into Kimbrough and see it packed. Okay,
yeah, right.
And I got to see that because of you and
right.
your buffs. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was a thrill of my lifetime to see that place just overflowing. You know what I mean? But because when I got here in '82, covered the Canyon Eagles. A good crowd in there, 4,000 or 5,000 fans. Mm-hmm. But that's 15,000 empty seats. You know what I mean? But to walk in there after all those years, because they had talked about the Arizona States coming in and all that, and to see Kimbrough packed. I'm going to tell you what, I didn't cry. I'm not going to lie to you and say I got that emotional, but I was like, wow, and I want to say thank you for doing that.
Well, you're welcome. I'll tell you another little story real quick.
Sure.
When I was farming at Freona and hadn't got the WT job once, and in between there, I just doing some business in Amarillo, and I just stopped out at the stadium, and it was unlocked, and I walked out there, and I just walked down the sideline and just looking in the stands and just dreaming of maybe coaching there someday.
Wow. And
by golly, I got the job the next time. So but I had those goosebumps just in the stadium by myself. It's a special place, and Bain Schaefer is too. Don't take me wrong. But, at that time, Kimbrough was where I wanted to coach.
Yeah. I got to tell you this story. I just now remembered this. So it's Christmas time. I remember this, and I'm out doing something in the backyard, and Kim said, "Donnie called. I need you to call him." Okay. Well, I forgot. I flat forgot to call him. He calls me the next morning. He said, "Did you get my message?" I said, "Oh, Coach, I'm sorry. I did, and that's on me. I forgot." He said, "I need your ring size." I said, "My ring size?" He goes, "We're ordering rings today. I need your ring size." I said, "Well, I'm not getting a ring." He goes, "You're getting a ring. I need your ring size. You get down here and get it measured, or I'll get you one that doesn't fit. Your choice." So I shoot down to the activity center, get my ring size, get it to him. So the rings come in.
Wow.
Okay. We're sitting out in my truck. He called and said, "Hey, I want you to come get your ring." So I'm sitting out in the parking lot at the activity center, and I'm looking at this thing. I'm like, this is mine. And so I'm looking at it, and on the top it had 19, I'm counting stones, it had 19 stones on the top. And I said, "What's the significance of the 19 stones, Coach?" He goes, "I don't know, but you're probably fixing to tell me." And I said, "It's been 19 years since we won a conference championship." He said, "That's by accident." Part two of that was on the side of my ring, down there where the players' numbers were.
Yeah.
Mine said fan. When rings were ordered the next year, I said, "Can I at least just put my graduation year down there? I don't want to be fan anymore." So all of those rings that I have a collection of from Don Carthel, and I've got a big collection of them, more than my one hand will hold.
Yeah.
They all say number 85 on the side.
That's a great story.
Yeah.
That's Don is finest. So,
Yeah.
hey, we can't thank you enough, Don, for coming in today and visit with us. I know everybody's busy. You're busy, but we appreciate your time.
I enjoyed it. Thank you all.
I appreciate your friendship, my
Yeah.
You too, Jimmy.
Yeah. Good stuff, man. Good stuff. Hey, that was the Fieldhouse Podcast. Like I always say, we can't thank you enough for joining us. If you have people you would like us to interview, let us know, or else we don't mind even bringing our loyal viewers and listeners in as well. So like I always say, we'll see you when we see you. This was the Fieldhouse Podcast.